Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. This session is about language and education. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would be able to understand the relationship of the two, especially in the social context and then in terms of sociolinguistic implications of all this. Well, my dear students, in its broadest sense, the relationship between language and learning starts even before a child goes to school. Children start learning language at home, from the very time of birth. In fact, the process of, input of language starts, and children, as they pass their first 2 years of their early infancy life, they already start producing language as well. And by the time they go to school, the process of language learning, already has taken place. It has already started in almost all the cases. So, children, when they are learning a language, even before going to school, they are not only learning a language, they are also learning how to behave linguistically, how to use that language, how to talk, how to interact through those linguistic choices that are available. And, this input keeps on coming from talk, from print media, from home, from social life, from parents, etc., which keeps on informing them and thus shaping, their linguistic repertoires. When it comes to children in multilingual societies, which is a case in most of the societies in the present times, multilingual environments are more complex and more complicated when it comes to language and learning of language processes. Actually, children at very early age not only learn different languages through different inputs, but also they learn to make choices. They learn how to use these linguistic resources in order to perform different linguistic as well as social functions. Now, when these children go to schools, the implications of all this for a student who comes to the school from a particular speech community, who in his or her speech community has learned certain languages and has learned using certain varieties of certain languages or dialects in certain ways, when this child comes to a classroom, the implications are very, very complicated. When it comes to talk and literacy in the classroom, that is the education processes in the classroom, actually there are some very important ideas. Most of the times the classroom business, that is the classroom activity, goes on through what? Through language. Teaching the curriculum or managing the groups of students to do different activities, all this is most of the times mediated through dialogues, where the teacher talks to the students. Thus, students learn socially how to turn take. This turn taking is an important process in the classroom. Sinclair and Coulthard 1975 have done some research, and they say that this turn taking in the classroom has a particular shape and form, and this is very much structured in the education process. They call it IRF: initiation, response, feedback. So teacher initiates. What does this mean? The student responds. Sir, this means this. Teacher gives feedback. Good. So, initiation, response, feedback. This is what keeps on continuing in the class as a kind of turn-taking process through which, the process of education in the classroom takes place. In this way, a body of shared knowledge on a particular topic that the teacher is teaching is constructed in the classroom. Now, when we look at certain aspects of this, the Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky 1962 saw language as both a cultural tool which inducts children into the shared knowledge and understanding, the language that the teacher would use in education, the languages that the student would bring from his or her speech community. And there is not one student in the class. There are more than one learners in the class. Everybody is bringing a different linguistic repertoire, a different bank of different languages. So this all expands to the totality of the learning environment. In the ways in which they take part in the classroom talk, different literacy activities that are conducted, then it also shapes, through all these activities in the classroom, their sense of gender, of social class, of social identity. Everything actually is shaped through this process of formal education. So, right from the beginning of schooling, students are shifted to teachers towards using more literate forms of English. And here is where comes the idea of standard language that is used in classroom. Psychologists like David Olson have argued that the acquisition of literacy is enormously important for children and for society. Why this literacy is important? Because it leads to more abstract, explicit, rational and scientific thinking, which is a need for citizens to operate within the sociolinguistic contexts. So language is not only used for education inside the classroom, it is also used outside the classroom. How does language operate in and out of school? Many children experience striking differences between language and literacy at home and school. You would notice a lot of children, even in Pakistani context, for example, in Punjab, parents would speak Punjabi with their children or would at the most speak Urdu. Now when these children go to, let us say, English medium schools in Pakistan, a particular stream of education, children would find discrepancies in the choices of language because there the teachers have this practice of using English. So in multilingual communities, this multilinguality of a child and this multilingualism of the total of the society creates problems and concerns when it comes to the idea of, using language for education.